So, in the tradition of many teachers far greater than I thought I would find 10 teachings that came to me from the matter. So the first of the lessons is, of course, that we all emerge from a single source, from the force of life itself, which some of us call God. The second of these teachings is that our interdependence is absolute. After each of our readings at this service, we always say, "May these words benefit us and all those whom our lives touch." This is a very significant prayer, in fact, because we are constantly affecting the people around us. We are constantly being influenced by the people around us. But what we may be less conscious of is that we also are part of this great web of life, and that inevitably and absolutely we are also influencing everyone around us. And the question, the only question is, how are we doing it? Are we doing it from a place of love? Are we doing it from a place of generosity? Are we doing it from a place of interest? Are we not only reading nature all around us, but also reading human nature around us? Are we learning from what we read on other people's faces? Are we learning from what we hear when we listen deeply to what they have to say? Or are we so caught up in our own drama that other people's dramas are one-dimensional to us when they could be three-dimensional or even four? The third of these teachings is that life infinitely renews itself. Isn't that the most uplifting thing? Because sometimes we can tell ourselves that life or something that has happened within our lives is so dreadful that we are up against what we sometimes call a brick wall. And a brick wall, of course, cannot renew itself. Except that in the most astonishing ways, even life can emerge through a brick wall. There's a very favorite saying from Plato, which is that the soul of the oak tree is in the acorn. There is so much greatness, even in a seed, even in the mustard seed. There is so much possibility for love, for generosity, for harmony, and for good in the nature of your spiritual and human nature. In your soul is something far greater even than an oak tree. This is a very nourishing thought. But how would we water those seeds? Primarily through the attention that we pay, not only to what is coming within us, but also what we are putting out from us. This is the dance of generation and regeneration. What are we generating through our thoughts, through our actions, through our prayers, through our wishes? Again, a favorite teaching, this time from Christ. I am the vine, you are the branches. The reaching out is done through this bodily form, each of us in our own way. The fourth of these beautiful teachings given to me by the earth is that nature displays herself in infinite variety. Just look, for example, at those very different families of flowers on our altar today. What different families of flowers, Never mind how different each one of them is. If we just think for a moment, if we just pause for a moment and think about the simplest of gardens, never mind the garden of existence, we can see how diverse and how diversely life expresses itself. Thinking about that, staying with that thought for just a moment, can transform our fear of difference. It can reconcile us at the deepest levels to the reality of existence, which is that we are an immensely diverse family, and we are also one. That life expresses itself in manifold ways, and that we need not be afraid of difference. We can celebrate it joyfully. We can love it joyfully. We live in a city here in Sydney where nature insists upon its presence. When I first came to Australia, long before I came to live here, it was one of the things that I noticed most, that this is a big, built-up, hectic, materialistic city, and yet nature insists on showing itself at practically every turn. And it's one of the things that I love most about it. The fifth is that we are utterly dependent on the physical elements. Earth, fire, air, water. Which takes us to the sixth point, which is that each of these physical elements has its mirroring form also in the symbolic world. And we are equally dependent on those forms also. To be conscious of who we are becoming, we need to take in the air of ideas that are replenishing. We need refreshing ideas as much as we need clean air in any of its other forms. We need to breathe in ideas that are not stale, but can be renewed for us every day, that have the freshness of truth to them, so that whether they were born or spoken 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago, they still have the freshness of today. And we need to get rid of stale ideas that limit us and certainly divide us. We need also to be deeply thoughtful of what we fan with the fires of our attention. Fire is itself immensely compelling. We need it for its warmth, we need it for what it burns away, but we also need it for what it lights up and ignites within us. We need to be continuously sensitive to the living waters, to the emotional responses that we evoke in others and that we are responsible for, and the emotional responses we offer to others. The living forms, the living waters of our spiritual truths also have their physical, their emotional, and their symbolic manifestations. The seventh lesson from the earth is a very tender one. It's that the physical life is seasonal, which is deeply encouraging, and here we are renewing our awareness of that in the season of spring. It's temporal and it's impermanent. none of us in this body will be here for what we call forever. And yet, the I that manifests in this body has an eternal existence that we can grasp through the temporal form. The 8th lesson is that every day there is a new beginning. I love that. Every day there is a new beginning. Out of darkness, light arises, light surrenders to darkness, and out of darkness, light is born. The 9th lesson is that nature reveals itself to us through its treachery and its terrifying moods, and that we sentimentalize it to our disadvantage. This terrifying side of nature should and can, I think, push us to think very carefully about how we ourselves choose to act, whether we are generating greater harmony, whether we are generating greater tenderness, compassion and care in difficult times, or whether we are just reacting with rage that the agenda isn't always the one that we would have sought. As some of you know, my personal theology doesn't extend to an interventionist God. But what I do believe in, and what I feel that my life has taught me in so many ways, is that the divine source is utterly faithful to us. And that sometimes we notice this, sometimes we need to notice this most dramatically in those darkest and most difficult and most uncertain times. And that the 10th of the lessons that the earth has given me is that we owe it to one another. We owe it to our ancestors, and we owe it to the generations still to come, and most of all we owe it to our mother that we call the earth. That we would be protectors of this earth and not plunderers. That we would be caretakers, that we would be lovers of the earth, that we would harbour its gifts, that we would consider deeply what is just and what is unjust, that we would be cautious in our demands of what the earth should be giving us, and perhaps bolder in our concern as to what we should be giving to the earth. And most of all, that we would share the riches and the treasures and the glories of this earth generously as we are able. In that, every day, we can look with fresh eyes at something on this earth, including our own lives and the lives of the people around us, and offer silent and sometimes explicit thanks and appreciation for the force and the source of life that flows through all of us. This is the miracle of living. This is the miracle of living. We don't need more miracles. This is the miracle. One final, very brief teaching from Sri Aurobindo. Spirit shall look out through matter's gaze, and matter shall reveal spirit's face, and all the earth shall become a single life.